Hello, welcome to OCC YouTube. Just seen Bayern Munich beat Paris Saint-Germain 1-0, which was a game that had so much riding on it. That's probably why it fizzled and didn't quite explode. Of course, Bayern had a couple of early setbacks in this season's Champions League, losing two of the first three group games. PSG getting 4 points from their first four games, which is even worse. So Bayern came into this with 6, PSG with 4. And PSG kind of had to make something happen here, but knowing all the time that Bayern away is super difficult. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the PSG side of it when we get to the main show on OTC later in the week, because I think there's a lot to say about PSG and the sort of place they are in the Champions League under Luis Enrique at the moment. But I wanted to talk more about Bayern because the last time we did one of these videos, it was with JJ, the Parc des Princes, after full time there, so I went a bit PSG heavy there. First time seeing Bayern in the flesh under Vincent Kompany, and obviously they've come a long way already. Does that mean they're necessarily going to win the Champions League? No, I don't think it does, because we saw reasons why they could and reasons why they might not tonight as well. I thought they were really, really good in the first half in particular, a lot better than PSG. But despite the fact, it's not really about them not taking the chances actually, even though they should have been more than 1-0 up at half time, in my opinion. It was about the fact that you could see exactly where they could concede goals to a team that actually lacked a lot of goal threat. You looked at the PSG lineup and you wondered where the goals were coming from. Where the goals were coming from was pretty clear. If PSG were going to score, it was going to be because of a Bayern mistake. And the best chances they did have, we think of that Zaire Emery one in the first half, the Dembele one when it was really well saved by Manuel Neuer. That was already down to Bayern losing the ball in very avoidable areas. Now, it's kind of difficult to judge Bayern at the moment because, of course, they've got a lot of injuries, particularly in midfield, the area that needed most attention this summer and the area that got most attention this summer. So you think of Joao Palhinha, the midfielder that they needed for a really long time, chased for a really long time, and finally got this summer, who of course has had a minimal impact so far because a company didn't really want to pick him at the start of the season. He preferred to pick Alexander Pavlovic. It's always important, of course, for Bayern to have players who come through the academy. And then Pavlovic went down, so Palhinha got in the team. Then Palhinha went down and is currently out injured. So we're kind of back to square one. I don't know if that's entirely a bad thing with having Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka in the middle for Bayern. The pair who good friends off the pitch as well, we thought would really be the midfield that Bayern built around for ages and ages and ages to come. But it didn't really happen for various reasons. Bayern have looked at getting rid of both of them in the last couple of years. Now things have really turned around for Kimmich, even though he's out of contract at the end of the season. And PSG, of course, were one of the clubs that he might have ended up going to, but didn't. Barcelona were another one who are very interested. It looks like Kimmich will sign a new contract, and he looks more like himself, I think, under Kompany than he has done for a while. Now, what if Kompany has that same effect on Leon Goretzka? Because Goretzka is a big wage who I would like to lose. Bayern are a club who are always acutely aware of the fact that you can't pay everyone, and that plays into forthcoming contract negotiations. It might play into how they decide to shuffle their pack of winners, because I'd be really surprised if all of Gnabry, Sané and Coman were here next season, especially with the arrival of Michael Olise. Of course, he could play inside as well, but he is competition for them. There's no getting away from that. And of course, they need to give Mathys Tel some game minutes at some point. Fantastic young player that therefore he is. But Goretzka is a real quandary because he is a player who really drifted big time. They were looking to get rid of him last summer. Those wages made him quite difficult to shift, even for Premier League clubs to be interested. I think you might be talking about wage cut. Of course, that's a very difficult thing to sell. But since they've been forced to pick him again, since the injuries to Pavlovic and Palhinha, it's been really, really good. And I'll go as far as to say, if he wasn't man of the match tonight, he was pretty close. They needed that extra bit of physical edge, and of course, we know how muscly you got during lockdown, one of those memes of European football in the last 5 years. I think that extra bit of muscle was really important against PSG, who, I think have a potentially really good midfield, but they definitely don't have muscle in there as things stand at the moment. What would they give for a Thiago Motta or a Blaise Matuidi now, I suppose you could ask. But so that's another decision for Bayern's being counters to have to get to. But if we're talking about the rest of this season, before we get to contract, before we talk about money or any of that stuff, how they shuffle the resources that they've actually got to get them closer to winning the Champions League this season. Now, I don't say to be a contender, because I think they are a contender already. I think you can look at some of those early pratfalls and, okay, they were completely outclassed at Barcelona, but the game at Villa, even though Villa were excellent as the game went on, thought Bayern's carelessness, which is not unexpected, is not all down to Vincent Kompany, because we've seen it before under Nagelsmann, in front, even under Thomas Tuchel, certainly under Hansi Flick. The good Bayern sides overcommitting and getting caught. Really, what happened tonight is perhaps not that much of a surprise in that sense. It's almost in the club DNA. But I think the really good thing about where they are at the moment, I mean, they're 9 points, so one more is probably going to get them in the 24, even though they're going to be aiming for the top 8, of course. Those 2 games off in February would be very, very useful to them, and Company would really welcome that. But I think what they've done really well is they haven't dramatised the situation. When they lost 2 of the first 3 in this Champions League group, they took a breath, they managed to find some sort of calm, which is incredibly hard to do at a club like this. But if there's one thing that Kompany's added, I don't think his tactical genius or anything like that, is that atmosphere that he's created around the squad. He's someone who's very erudite, very calm, and is teaching everyone at Bayern to be able to take a breath and stick to the plan. And they managed to do that even after 2 defeats in that first 3. Now, the last game here, of course, in the Champions League against Benfica, they won that 1-0. A little bit nervy, to be perfectly honest. And maybe they got a little bit nervy in the second half here. They came out very sloppily, I thought, after the break. Really, really proximate on the ball for the first 5 minutes or so of that before they got it together. And then the Ousmane Dembélé red card changed everything, because it goes from you're in a good position to win the game to you have to win the game because you're 1-0 up against a team who are playing with 10 men at home and maybe don't have as many attacking threats as they might. So I think that created a little bit of tension. But we have to say, on paper at least, the defensive record has been very good. You look at where Upamecano is in his partnership with Kim at the moment. Kim, of course, got the winning goal here tonight. And they feel a lot better now. Now, of course, Upamecano's been very up and down over the last couple of years. Made some fairly believable mistakes in some big games, but he's still got it in him, I think, to be a really good defender. And then you've got Kim, who was talking at length actually this week about how his poor start to life at Bayern was due to the fact that he had to go home to South Korea and do his military service. You know, we're talking 30-mile walks and runs with 20 k's of stones on his back, which is a bit extreme. Didn't quite get the sign off that Son did, but it's clear that really affected his physical condition last season, and he talked about that at length. The two of them look like they've got the potential to be a really good partnership, still growing. Of course, Alphonso Davies on one side. Konrad Laimer actually did really, really well right back tonight, I thought. And again, one of the outstanding players. We're maybe seeing Leipzig Laimer at the moment. He's getting back to his very best form. And with that space behind Nuno Mendes, he managed to burst into that space, particularly in the first half, and provide another attacking threat for Bayern. So if they've got one midfielder, in Kimmich, who doesn't really want to be a right back, they've got another midfielder who can play right back, who might be actually medium term someone who could do a really good job of it. So look, there are still those little flies in the ointment for Bayern, and I don't think they're ever going to be chanceless. That's why they're fortunate to have a goalkeeper in Manuel Neuer, who basically plays as a defensive midfielder as well. Very useful with Palinha out the team at the moment, I would say. So they're never going to completely iron those out. It's not really a case of ironing out. That just is what Bayern are, really. But when they really find that attacking click, we've seen Kingsley Coman have settled in a while. Of course, he could have gone to the Middle East this summer, decided not to, and he seems to have taken a breath and has that sense of he's grateful to be here. He's committing, working really hard, playing really well, starting to find the sort of consistency that we've always really wanted from him, because we know how good he can be on his day. And so the question is, on the other side, Michael Olise to get dip at the moment. So Leroy Sané's come in, again, very good first half and then faded a little bit. I think there's the opportunity for Olise to really make that spot his own between now and Christmas. But of course, it's not just about now and Christmas. Champions League group stage goes to the end of January, and even if Bayern are home and hosed for the top 24, if not the top 8, before the end of January, I can't help thinking that they're going to, as well as some other big teams, going to have a few little experiments to see exactly what they need when they're going into the knockout stages. And you know they're going to be fierce competition for any team going forward, especially here at the Allianz Arena. Thanks so much for joining us as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course subscribe to the podcast on the continent. We will be back on Thursday with the main show. We've got it from David Cartledge, and with Ask OTC, we'll answer all your questions. So get them in here, on the socials, everywhere on Friday.